The pickup truck market was never supposed to change like this, but Hyundai just did something that nobody saw coming, and it's sending shockwaves across the entire auto industry. For years, affordable pickup trucks were talked about, rumored, promised, and then quietly abandoned. Now Hyundai has stepped in with a super cheap pickup truck that doesn't just undercut competitors on price, it challenges the entire idea of what a modern pickup should cost. And that's exactly why legacy automakers are suddenly nervous. What makes this Hyundai pickup so shocking isn't just the price tag, it's the timing. Truck prices have exploded, dealerships are filled with $50,000, $60,000 pickups, and working class buyers have been pushed out of the market. Hyundai clearly saw this gap and went straight for it. This truck is being positioned as a no-nonsense, value-packed workhorse that everyday people can actually afford, not a luxury status symbol disguised as a pickup. Early details suggest Hyundai focused on the basics that matter most to buyers who actually use their trucks. A tough body on frame design, practical bed dimensions, and a powertrain tuned for reliability rather than flashy numbers. Hyundai isn't chasing bragging rights here, they're chasing volume, and that strategy alone is what's scaring competitors. When a brand known for reliability and value enters the pickup space with aggressive pricing, it forces everyone else to react. The design is another surprise. Instead of looking cheap or stripped down, this pickup looks modern, rugged, and purposeful. Hyundai avoided unnecessary chrome and oversized grills, choosing a clean, functional design that signals durability. This is a truck that looks ready to work, not just sit in a suburban driveway. That visual alone is resonating with buyers who are tired of paying more for less capability. Then there's the interior, and this is where expectations really get flipped. Hyundai didn't gut the cabin to hit a low price. Reports point to a simple but smart layout, durable materials, modern infotainment, and safety tech that many assumed would be cut to save money. Hyundai knows today's buyers expect connectivity and basic driver assistance even in an affordable vehicle, and they made sure this truck doesn't feel like a step back in time. The real bombshell, though, is the rumored pricing strategy. Hyundai isn't just slightly cheaper than rivals, it's aiming to come in thousands below the current entry-level pickups on the market. That instantly redefines the floor price of the entire segment. If Hyundai can deliver this truck at scale, it pressures Ford, Toyota, GM, and others to either slash prices or explain to buyers why their base trucks cost so much more. Industry insiders are already pointing out that this could trigger a price war, something automakers have desperately tried to avoid. But Hyundai has less to lose and everything to gain. They're expanding their footprint, attracting first-time truck buyers, and pulling budget-conscious consumers away from used trucks and aging models. That's a dangerous combination for established brands that rely on high-margin pickups to fund their entire operations. What's even more interesting is how this pickup fits into Hyundai's broader strategy. The company has been aggressively expanding across segments, from EVs to SUVs, and now pickups. This isn't a one-off experiment. It looks like a calculated move to lock in long-term loyalty. Buyers who get into a Hyundai pickup at an affordable price are likely to stay with the brand for years, upgrading within Hyundai's ecosystem rather than jumping to competitors. And while some critics are already questioning durability and long-term performance, Hyundai's recent track record makes those doubts harder to defend. The brand has consistently climbed in reliability rankings, and they're backing this pickup with warranties that signal confidence. Hyundai knows that trust is everything in the truck world, and they're clearly betting that value plus reliability is a winning formula. The reaction online has been explosive. Truck forums, social media, and auto channels are buzzing with disbelief, excitement, and panic all at once. Some buyers are calling this the truck they've been waiting for, while others are wondering how long competitors can ignore this move before they're forced to respond. The fact that so many people are talking about a cheap pickup again shows just how badly the market needed this disruption. And as more details continue to surface, questions are only growing louder about how far Hyundai is willing to push this strategy, what trims and configurations are coming, and whether this pickup is just the beginning of a much bigger shift that could permanently reshape the truck market as we know it. Because once consumers realize they don't have to overpay just to own a capable pickup, the entire industry may be standing at the edge of a major turning point. and Hyundai appears ready to push it even further by expanding this lineup, adjusting production, and targeting markets that other automakers have completely ignored, which opens the door to an even bigger conversation about what happens next when affordability finally returns to the pickup truck world and buyers start demanding more value instead of accepting inflated prices. That shift in buyer mindset is exactly what legacy automakers fear the most, because once expectations change, it's almost impossible to push prices back up. Hyundai's move isn't just about one cheap pickup, it's about resetting what people believe a truck should cost. When shoppers walk into a dealership after seeing Hyundai's pricing, every sticker suddenly looks questionable, and that pressure doesn't stay at the showroom, it ripples through supply chains, production planning, and even labor negotiations. What makes this even more disruptive is how flexible Hyundai is compared to traditional truck giants. They aren't locked into decades-old pickup platforms or massive V8 heavy lineups. This allows Hyundai to engineer this truck around efficiency, smaller engines, and smarter manufacturing processes that cut costs without cutting corners. That agility gives Hyundai a pricing advantage that competitors simply can't match overnight, no matter how big their brand names are. There's also a global angle that most people aren't talking about yet. Hyundai already sells rugged, affordable pickups in international markets, and they've been refining that formula for years. This new truck looks like the result of all that experience being adapted for a broader audience. Instead of starting from scratch, Hyundai is leveraging proven designs, tested components, and global supply networks, which explains how they can move so aggressively on price while still protecting margins. Dealers are watching this very closely because an affordable pickup brings a completely different type of customer through the door. Younger buyers, small business owners, contractors, and rural drivers who were priced out of the market suddenly have a reason to show up. That increases foot traffic, service revenue, and long-term relationships, even if the initial profit per vehicle is lower. Hyundai understands that a truck owner often becomes a repeat customer, and that lifetime value is where the real money is made. Meanwhile, competitors are stuck in a tough position. If they ignore Hyundai, they risk losing market share to a brand that's gaining momentum fast. If they respond by cutting prices, they risk collapsing their own profit structure, especially on trucks that subsidize less profitable segments. It's a lose-lose scenario that Hyundai seems perfectly prepared to exploit, and that's why this reveal is being described as a nightmare for the rest of the industry. Another critical piece of this story is fuel efficiency. Early talk suggests Hyundai is prioritizing better mileage without sacrificing usability, which directly appeals to buyers dealing with high fuel costs. This isn't about extreme towing numbers or oversized engines, it's about realistic daily use. That practical approach aligns perfectly with the budget-focused buyer and further separates this truck from the bloated, overpowered options dominating the market today. Even the feature strategy shows careful planning. Instead of locking essential features behind expensive trims, Hyundai is expected to include must-have tech and safety systems as standard. That eliminates the frustration buyers feel when they realize the cheap base model is basically unusable. By delivering real value at the entry level, Hyundai makes upselling optional rather than mandatory, and that transparency builds trust fast. The more analysts dig into this move, the clearer it becomes that Hyundai isn't chasing headlines, they're executing a long-term play. This pickup could become the foundation for multiple variants, work-focused trims, lifestyle versions, and even future electrified models. Starting with a low-cost entry point gives Hyundai room to expand upward without alienating the very buyers who made the truck popular in the first place. And as production plans and regional rollouts continue to leak, one thing is becoming undeniable. This isn't a concept or a limited experiment. Hyundai is preparing to build this truck in real numbers, aiming for scale, visibility, and impact. That's when the real disruption begins. Because once these trucks start showing up on roads, job sites, and driveways, the conversation shifts from speculation to reality, and the industry will be forced to confront what happens when affordability returns in a segment that has been dominated by excess for far too long, pushing buyers to rethink loyalty, value, and what they truly need from a pickup as this story continues to unfold and raises even bigger questions about how far Hyundai is willing to go next and which automaker will crack first under the pressure. Those pressure cracks are already starting to show behind the scenes, even if the big brands won't admit it publicly. Internal memos, dealer chatter, and analyst notes are all circling the same concern. Hyundai has attacked the one part of the truck market that was supposed to be safe. Entry-level pricing was meant to pull buyers in, but over time it quietly drifted upward, and now Hyundai is dragging it back down by force. What really amplifies the shock is how this pickup aligns with real-world usage. Most truck owners aren't towing massive trailers every day or hauling extreme loads. They're commuting, doing weekend jobs, running small businesses, and hauling equipment occasionally. Hyundai built this truck around that reality, not around marketing bravado. That means less waste, lower operating costs, and a vehicle that feels purpose-built instead of over-engineered. There's also a psychological factor at play here that can't be ignored. When buyers hear super cheap pickup, they expect compromises. But when they actually see a well-designed, capable truck with modern tech and a familiar Hyundai badge, that expectation collapses. That moment of surprise is powerful because it rewires how people judge value. Suddenly, the question isn't, can Hyundai make a truck? But why are other trucks so expensive? Competitors now face an uncomfortable comparison problem. Even if their trucks outperform Hyundai's in certain areas, the price gap forces buyers to ask whether those advantages are truly worth the extra money. For many, the answer will be no. That's how market share quietly shifts, not through dramatic collapses, but through thousands of individual purchase decisions that slowly add up to a major industry realignment. Another underappreciated angle is how this truck could disrupt the used vehicle market. Affordable new pickups pull demand away from older, high-mileage trucks that have been artificially inflated in price. If buyers can get a brand new Hyundai pickup with a warranty for not much more than a worn-out used truck, the logic of overpaying for used inventory starts to break down, and that sends shockwaves through dealerships that rely heavily on used truck sales. Hyundai also seems to be positioning this pickup as a global platform rather than a one-region gamble. That opens the door to rapid updates, cost sharing across markets, and continuous refinement. While some brands struggle to update trucks every few years, Hyundai can iterate faster, responding to feedback and adjusting features or pricing in ways that keep pressure on competitors. And then there's the brand perception shift. Pickups have long been dominated by a handful of names, creating the illusion that loyalty is unbreakable. But loyalty is fragile when value disappears. Hyundai's strategy doesn't attack heritage directly, it bypasses it. By offering something people can actually afford, they sidestep emotional arguments and focus purely on practicality, which is often far more persuasive. As more leaks, previews, and unofficial specs continue to circulate, anticipation keeps building. Buyers who weren't even in the market for a truck are suddenly paying attention. That's a dangerous sign for competitors, because it means Hyundai isn't just stealing customers, they're expanding the market itself, pulling in people who gave up on owning a pickup years ago. And the closer this truck gets to full production and public release, the harder it becomes for rivals to dismiss it as hype or speculation. Once pricing is locked, once orders open, and once real buyers start sharing their experiences, the narrative will shift again, turning from surprise to pressure, from curiosity to urgency, as the industry is forced to respond to a reality it tried to ignore for too long. And the question now, looming over the entire pickup segment, is not whether Hyundai's cheap truck will sell, but how deeply it will cut into a market built on the assumption that buyers would always accept higher prices without pushing back, an assumption that is starting to look dangerously outdated as this story keeps unfolding and leads directly into what Hyundai plans to do next. That looming next step is where this story becomes even more unsettling for the rest of the industry. Because Hyundai isn't acting like a brand testing the waters, it's acting like a brand preparing to dominate a neglected space. Everything about this pickup suggests a roadmap that goes far beyond a single model. And that's what keeps executives and analysts watching every move so closely. One of the strongest signals is production strategy. Hyundai has the manufacturing scale to ramp up quickly if demand explodes. And they've shown in other segments that they're willing to adjust output aggressively when they see momentum. That means if this pickup catches fire, Hyundai won't sit back and let waiting lists grow. They'll push volume, flood the market, and lock in buyers before competitors can react. Speed matters here, and Hyundai has it. There's also growing speculation about multiple configurations designed to target very specific buyers. A bare-bones work version for fleets and small businesses, a slightly upgraded trim for everyday personal use, and potentially lifestyle-oriented versions that still stay well below traditional pickup pricing. By covering multiple use cases without inflating costs, Hyundai can squeeze rivals from every angle at once. Another quiet but critical factor is regulation and emissions. As rules tighten globally, large displacement engines become more expensive to certify and maintain. Hyundai's approach, favoring efficiency in smaller powertrains, positions this pickup as a future-proof option. While others scramble to adapt legacy platforms, Hyundai is already aligned with where regulations are heading, which reduces long-term risk and cost. This also feeds into the electrification conversation. Even if this initial truck is gas-powered, the platform could easily support hybrid or electric variants later. Starting with a cheap, popular pickup gives Hyundai the perfect launchpad to introduce electrified versions without the sticker shock that scares buyers away. That kind of transition strategy is something many automakers are still struggling to figure out. Dealership behavior is another piece that can't be ignored. Affordable vehicles move fast, bring in volume, and generate service business. Hyundai dealers, who have watched other brands struggle with overpriced inventory, suddenly have a product that practically sells itself. That enthusiasm at the retail level often translates into stronger marketing, better availability, and a more consistent customer experience, all of which amplify momentum. At the same time, social media is amplifying every new detail. Short clips, leaked photos, and early impressions are spreading faster than official announcements. The narrative isn't being controlled by corporate marketing teams. It's being shaped by everyday people reacting in real time. That organic buzz is incredibly hard to manufacture, and it's exactly what turns a new vehicle into a cultural moment rather than just another product launch. The deeper this goes, the clearer it becomes that Hyundai has tapped into something fundamental. This isn't just frustration with prices, it's exhaustion. Buyers are tired of feeling squeezed, tired of being told that unaffordable vehicles are normal, and tired of compromises that don't actually benefit them. Hyundai's pickup feels like a response to that fatigue, and that emotional connection is what makes this reveal so powerful. As anticipation builds, and the countdown to real-world availability continues, the industry is bracing for impact. Every announcement, every leak, every rumor adds another layer of tension, because once this truck hits the streets in meaningful numbers, there's no undoing the comparison it creates. From that point forward, every pickup on the market will be judged against it, and that benchmark could permanently change how trucks are priced, built, and sold, setting the stage for even bigger revelations about Hyundai's long-term ambitions, the ripple effects across global markets, and the uncomfortable choices competitors will soon be forced to make as this unfolding story keeps accelerating and moves straight into the next phase of disruption. That next phase is already beginning to take shape, and it's unfolding faster than most people expected. As more concrete information surfaces, the conversation is shifting from disbelief to strategy. Automakers aren't just asking how Hyundai pulled this off. They're asking how much damage this truck could do if it gains traction in the exact markets where trucks are more than vehicles. They're economic tools. In rural areas and small towns, pickups aren't lifestyle accessories. They're necessities. For years, rising prices quietly pushed these buyers toward keeping older trucks on the road far longer than intended. Hyundai's entry suddenly offers a reset button. A brand new, affordable pickup with a warranty changes replacement cycles overnight, and that could flood the market with demand that's been building up for years under the surface. Fleet buyers are another massive pressure point. Construction companies, delivery services, maintenance crews, and local governments all watch cost per unit closely. If Hyundai's pickup delivers acceptable capability at a dramatically lower price, it becomes impossible to ignore. One large fleet order can shift production priorities, and multiple fleet contracts can stabilize volume in ways retail sales alone never could. This is where the economics get uncomfortable for established players. Trucks fund research, dividends, and future products. Losing even a small percentage of entry-level truck buyers creates a domino effect that spreads far beyond one segment. Hyundai doesn't need to outsell the market leaders to hurt them. It just needs to skim enough volume to disrupt that financial balance. There's also growing talk about how this truck could influence financing and ownership patterns. Lower prices mean smaller loans, faster payoff times, and less exposure to negative equity. That appeals strongly to cautious buyers who've been burned by long-term auto debt. Hyundai's pickup doesn't just lower the barrier to entry, it lowers the psychological risk of buying new, which is something the industry hasn't offered in a long time. Critics will continue to question long-term durability, resale value, and brand perception, but those arguments weaken as real-world usage data emerges. Hyundai understands this, which is why they appear confident letting the product speak for itself. Every mile driven, every job completed, every positive owner story chips away at skepticism and builds credibility where it matters most. Another subtle but powerful effect is how this truck reframes competition. Instead of fighting Ford versus GM versus Toyota, the conversation shifts to value versus excess. That's a framing Hyundai is well positioned to win. They aren't asking buyers to abandon tradition, they're asking them to reconsider priorities. And that's a much easier sell in an economy where every dollar matters. As public awareness grows, marketing narratives across the industry are starting to sound defensive. Words like premium, heritage, and capability are being emphasized more heavily, almost as if brands are trying to justify prices rather than celebrate products. Hyundai's message, by contrast, is simple and direct: affordability without apology. And that simplicity may end up being the most disruptive element of all. In a market crowded with complexity, fine print, and escalating costs, a straightforward cheap pickup feels radical. It cuts through the noise, forces comparisons, and invites buyers to ask hard questions that haven't been asked in years. With each passing update, the momentum continues to build, and the stakes continue to rise. This is no longer just about a new Hyundai model. It's about whether the pickup truck market can continue operating the way it has, or whether this reveal marks the beginning of a fundamental correction. One that brings prices back down to earth, reshapes buyer expectations, and sets off a chain. Reaction that will only intensify as Hyundai pushes forward, expands availability, and reveals even more about how far they're willing to go in redefining what a truly affordable pickup can be as this story keeps moving forward and opens the door to even more unexpected developments.